In today's video, I will talk about methods of enriching soil to grow vegetables year-round. When we grow vegetables, a lot of soil nutrients get used up in plant growth. And when we harvest these vegetables, the soil is depleted of those nutrients. Hence, there is a need to continuously replenish this soil to keep it healthy and fertile. Let's first understand what are these nutrients. NPK, which is commonly known as nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, together with calcium, magnesium and sulfur, form the macronutrients. As the name suggests, these elements are required in larger quantities by plants to initiate plant growth, right from cell formation to growth of leaves, stems and roots. In addition to these macronutrients, plants also require small quantities of elements like manganese, boron, copper, iron, zinc, nickel, molybdenum and chlorine. These are required for plants to remain viable, and these are called micronutrients. In undisturbed areas, whatever grows in soil returns to soil. For example, a plant grows, flowers, seeds, dries and decomposes in soil. Or an animal eats the plant, poops, and all that it eats returns to soil again. In a natural undisturbed land, the movement of nutrients is cyclic, from soil to plant to animal and then back to soil. But when we get into agriculture or gardening, we harvest the plant and break this nutrient cycle. Therefore, we must work really hard to replenish those nutrients back into the soil. How do we do that? Well, I do 3 things that helps me keep the soil healthy year-round. Number 1, feeding the soil. Number 2, covering the soil. And number 3, decompacting the soil. You can feed the soil with organic fertilizers. There are different kinds available, but what I commonly use are cow dung manure, vermicompost, and homemade compost. Cow manure is rich in most of the nutrients that are required by plants. The concentration of these nutrients would depend on the kind of fodder fed to these cows. If they were given good food, the manure will automatically be rich. Cow dung invites a lot of earthworms, which is definitely an added benefit. But care must be taken in using aged manure. Fresh manure is rich in ammonia, which burns the plants. Vermicompost is another organic fertilizer that is essentially poop of earthworms. A species of earthworms called red wrigglers are fed a diet of cow dung and crop waste, and their poop is basically packaged and sold as vermicompost. Quite like cow dung, this is also an all-round fertilizer that can be applied monthly to all your plants. It particularly benefits urban settings where cow dung manure is hard to get. If you don't mind recycling your kitchen waste and making your own fertilizer at home, then home composting is something you would like to get into. By mixing kitchen waste with a lot of dry matter like dry leaves or straw or grass cuttings or even cardboard, keeping it aerated and lightly moist in a corner away from sunlight will give you top quality compost for free at home. A question commonly asked is, how often do we fertilize the soil? Well, the answer is it depends on what you are growing. There are plants that do not require much nutrients like leafy greens, lettuce, beans, and these can grow with fertilizer application at the beginning of the sowing season. There are plants which are heavy feeders like tomatoes, brinjals, cauliflowers that will require frequent doses, especially at the time of fruiting. It also depends on local weather conditions and seasons, but as a general rule, spring and autumn are good seasons for fertilizing your garden. The next activity of enriching the soil is by covering it. Soil is a living substrate. When it remains covered, it tends to retain more moisture, it holds nutrients, and it increases the diversity of soil organisms. All of these benefit plant growth directly. We can cover the soil by mulching it, which is basically covering the soil with a thick layer of straw or dry leaves or grass clippings. When these decompose, they become part of the soil. You can also cover the soil with live plants such as spinach, radish, mint, and various kinds of grasses as well. These are called ground covers. They are covering the ground. These ground covers help reduce soil erosion, and they also moderate soil temperature, keeping it from getting too hot or too cold. The third activity of enriching soil is through decompacting it, meaning helping loosen the soil manually, which helps the soil breathe, absorb water and nutrients, and allow plant roots to take hold easily. Adding a ton of mulch definitely helps in making the soil loose and airable. However, you will often see the vegetable beds get hardened after a few months, even after mulching. This happens especially in case of poor urban soils. So, in the first 3 to 5 years, I tackle this situation by loosening the soil using a garden fork. But I make sure while I do so, I cause minimal damage to the soil structure. So I dig the fork deep into the soil, about 1 feet, and then lightly push it upwards. This loosens the soil, and then I pull out the fork. In doing so, the soil gets loosened, but the soil structure remains almost intact. I have a detailed video of this method, and I will leave a link in the description for you to go through. Another way of decompacting soil is by chopping off the stems of the plants at the end of their life cycle, at the time of harvest. So what happens when you chop off the stem is that the roots remain in the soil and they decompose slowly. This method will not only add organic matter into the soil, but it will also create tunnels in the soil, making it looser than before. When we do all these 3 activities year on year, the soil continues to get rich and healthy. This is what I have been doing in my garden, and I hope these tips will help you in your gardening journey. If you liked the video, please like, share and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Bye.